John Titor. On November 2, 2000, a user identifying themselves as Time Travel Zero appeared on the Time Travel Institute forums. Within days, this mysterious poster had captured the attention of physicists, engineers, and curious internet users around the world. Their initial posts contained technical discussions about temporal mechanics that demonstrated a level of scientific understanding that seemed far beyond what should have been possible for someone posting anonymously on internet forums. But this was just the beginning. The individuals soon revealed their true identity, claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036 who had been sent back in time on a specific mission. Their objective wasn't to change history or prevent some catastrophic event. Instead, they claimed to be retrieving a specific piece of vintage computer equipment that was crucial for debugging legacy systems in their timeline. What made this case extraordinary wasn't just the boldness of the claim, but the incredible level of detail that accompanied it. The alleged time traveler provided comprehensive technical specifications for their temporal displacement device, complete with photographs and operational manuals. They explained the physics of time travel using concepts from quantum mechanics and relativity theory with a precision that stunned academic physicists who examined their posts. The technical knowledge displayed was genuinely remarkable. They described their time machine as a device manufactured by General Electric, installed initially in a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette, and later upgraded to a 1987 Chevrolet Suburban for improved cargo capacity. The level of engineering detail they provided included specific gravity measurements, power requirements, and operational procedures that read like authentic technical documentation. But the real test of any alleged time traveler lies not in their technical knowledge, but in their predictions about the future. And this is where the case becomes truly extraordinary. Writing in 2000 and 2001, this mysterious individual made a series of predictions about future events that have proven remarkably accurate. They predicted that no weapons of mass destruction would be found in Iraq, a statement that seemed impossible given the political climate of the early 2000s. They warned about civil liberties violations following a major terrorist attack, describing scenarios that would become reality after September 11, 2001. Most remarkably, they described a future where people would carry powerful computers in their pockets and communicate through global social networks, concepts that were barely theoretical when they were writing. Their knowledge of specific technical details was equally impressive. They accurately described hidden functions in vintage IBM computers that weren't publicly acknowledged until years later. A former IBM engineer later confirmed that only a handful of people knew about these capabilities when the predictions were made. This wasn't general knowledge or lucky guessing. This was specific technical information that shouldn't have been available to someone posting anonymously on internet forums. The photographs they provided showed what appeared to be their time machine, complete with detailed technical manuals and operational instructions. Digital analysis of these images revealed a level of sophistication that would have been extremely difficult to fake using technology available in 2000. The documentation appeared authentic, the technical specifications were consistent, and the overall presentation suggested either an elaborate hoax requiring significant resources or genuine evidence of temporal technology. Perhaps most intriguing was their discussion of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics and its relationship to time travel. They described temporal displacement in terms of moving between parallel world lines rather than traveling through a single timeline. This approach to time travel physics was sophisticated and demonstrated a deep understanding of theoretical concepts that were at the cutting edge of academic research. Their posts continued for over 2 years, during which they answered hundreds of questions about future technology, historical events, and the mechanics of time travel. They described social and political changes that would occur in the coming decades, many of which have proven accurate. They discussed technological developments that seemed impossible in 2000, but have since become commonplace. On March 24, 2001, they posted their final message, stating that their mission was complete and they would be returning to their own time. They mentioned checking a few safety items before departure and then vanished from the forums entirely, never to post again. The timing of their departure, coming just months before the September 11th attacks that they had predicted, adds another layer of mystery to an already extraordinary case. In the years since their disappearance, researchers and investigators have attempted to verify their claims and trace their identity. Despite extensive investigation, no conventional explanation has been found for their remarkable knowledge of future events or their sophisticated understanding of theoretical physics. The predictions they made have continued to prove accurate, while the technical information they provided has been validated by experts in relevant fields. The case has been analyzed by physicists, computer scientists, and intelligence researchers. Yet no definitive explanation has emerged. The level of knowledge displayed, the accuracy of the predictions, and the technical sophistication of their temporal displacement theories suggest either an elaborate hoax involving significant resources and expertise or genuine evidence of time travel technology. What makes this case particularly compelling is that it occurred in the early days of the Internet, when creating sophisticated hoaxes required considerable technical skill and resources. The consistency of the information provided over 2 years of posting, combined with the accuracy of predictions that have continued to prove correct decades later, suggests something far more extraordinary than an internet prank. The Man from 1876. The streets of New York City in 1950 were bustling with post-war energy, filled with the sounds of automobile horns, streetcars, and the constant rhythm of urban life. Times Square represented the beating heart of America, a place where anything could happen and usually did. But on one particular Thursday evening in June, something occurred that would challenge the very foundations of how we understand time and reality. Picture this scene. It's rush hour. People are hurrying home from work. Traffic is heavy. And suddenly, a man appears in the middle of one of the world's busiest intersections. Not walks into traffic, not stumbles from the sidewalk, but literally appears as if materializing from thin air. Within seconds, he's struck by a taxi and killed instantly. A tragic accident, certainly. But what police discovered when they examined the body would turn this simple traffic fatality into one of the most mysterious cases in New York City history. The victim appeared to be a man in his late 20s, well-dressed and carrying identification that listed his name as Rudolph Fentz. But everything else about him was completely wrong for 1950. His clothing belonged to another era entirely. He wore a black frock coat, the kind fashionable in the 1870s, along with buttoned shoes that hadn't been worn for decades. Yet these weren't costume pieces or aged garments. They appeared brand new, as if they had just been tailored by the finest craftsmen of the Victorian era. When investigators searched his pockets, they found items that deepened the mystery rather than solving it. There were brass buttons, obviously valuable and clearly antique. A copper token, good for a free beer at a tavern that had been demolished in 1876. $70 in old banknotes, currency that had been out of circulation for decades. Yet the bills appeared crisp and new, as if they had just been printed. Perhaps most puzzling was what he didn't have. No modern identification cards, no wallet contents that would connect him to 1950, no signs of the mental illness or confusion that might explain his anachronistic appearance. Witnesses described him as looking around in complete bewilderment, as if seeing Times Square for the first time, before stepping directly into traffic. Captain Hubert Ream of the Missing Persons Bureau decided to investigate further. What he discovered defied all logic and reason. In the missing persons files from 1876, he found an entry for one Rudolph Fentz, aged 29, who had disappeared without a trace while taking an evening walk near his home. The missing man's description matched the accident victim perfectly, down to the smallest physical details. But the investigation didn't stop there. Ream dug deeper into the records and made an even more impossible discovery. In the 1939 New York phone directory, there was a listing for a Rudolph Fentz Jr. When contacted, this man claimed his father had vanished mysteriously in 1876 during an evening walk and was never seen again. He provided a photograph of his missing father. The image was identical to the man killed in Times Square, matching every facial feature and physical characteristic. The case was quietly filed away and forgotten, deemed too strange for public consumption. But retired police officers who worked the investigation continued to whisper about it for decades. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they understood about the nature of time and reality. The physical evidence was undeniable. The perfectly preserved 19th century clothing, the authentic period money, the missing persons records that matched exactly. This case raises profound questions about the nature of temporal displacement. Was Rudolph Fentz a victim of some kind of time anomaly that transported him 74 years into the future? The evidence suggests that a man who disappeared in 1876 somehow materialized in 1950, carrying with him authentic artifacts from his original time period. Real quick, if you're learning something new from this video, be sure to like and drop a comment with your favorite. It helps us to spread this info to those who need to hear it. Also, subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next one. Trust me, there's a whole lot more hidden. Now back to it. The Versailles time slip, Eleanor Jourdain and Charlotte Moberly were visiting the Palace of Versailles as tourists in 1901, expecting nothing more than a pleasant walk through famous gardens. These weren't impressionable individuals prone to flights of fancy. Both women were respected academics, skeptical by nature, and trained in rigorous scholarly methods. Jourdain was the principal of St. Hugh's College at Oxford, while Moberly served as the principal of St. Hilda's College. Their credentials were impeccable, their reputations beyond reproach. On August 10, 1901, they were exploring the grounds of Versailles when they began to notice something was wrong. The atmosphere became oppressive and dreamlike. The colors around them seemed to fade, and an inexplicable feeling of melancholy settled over them. What happened next would occupy their research and investigation for the next decade. They encountered several people dressed in 18th century clothing who seemed to be going about their daily business as if it were perfectly normal. Near the Petit Trianon, they observed a woman in period dress sitting on the grass, sketching. She looked up at them with mild curiosity before returning to her work. Later research would reveal that this woman matched historical descriptions of Marie Antoinette perfectly, down to her distinctive hairstyle and facial features. The location where they saw her was precisely where the doomed queen was known to spend her afternoons in the summer of 1789. They encountered gardeners working with tools that belonged to a different century, observed buildings that had been demolished decades earlier, and walked down paths that no longer existed in 1901. Most striking was their interaction with a man in a dark cloak who warned them away from a certain direction. A man they would later realize bore an exact resemblance to the Count de Vaudreuil, one of Marie Antoinette's courtiers. When they returned to their hotel that evening, both women were deeply shaken by the experience. Being academics, they began a methodical investigation that would last over a decade. They interviewed historians, studied 18th century maps of Versailles, and compared their memories to historical records. Everything they had seen and everyone they had encountered could be verified as historically accurate to the summer of 1789, just months before the French Revolution would change everything forever. What made their account particularly credible was that they conducted their research separately, writing independent accounts before comparing notes. Their descriptions matched not only each other, but also historical records that weren't publicly available in 1901. They possessed knowledge of architectural details, garden layouts, and specific individuals that they couldn't have accessed through conventional research. The French authorities took their claims seriously enough to launch their own investigation. They confirmed that the women had accurately described features of Versailles that existed in 1789 but had been changed or removed by 1901. The paths they walked, the buildings they saw, and even the placement of specific trees matched historical plans stored in private archives. After 10 years of research and verification, Moberly and Jourdain published their account in 1911 under the title An Adventure. Their report sparked international debate and drew support from psychical researchers and skepticism from materialist scientists. But the physical evidence, their impossible knowledge of 18th century Versailles, remained unexplained. The case of the Versailles time slip represents something unique in the annals of temporal anomalies. Two credible witnesses conducting independent research documented an experience that provided them with accurate historical knowledge they couldn't have obtained through conventional means. They didn't just claim to have traveled back in time. They proved it through the accuracy of their observations. The Philadelphia Witness. In the summer of 1955, astronomer and UFO researcher Morris Jessup received correspondence that would fundamentally change his understanding of reality and the nature of time itself. The letter came from a man calling himself Carl Allen, later known as Carlos Miguel Allende. His claims were so extraordinary that they seemed beyond belief, yet the technical accuracy of his knowledge and the consistency of his account have made this one of the most compelling cases of witnessed time travel in modern history. Allen claimed to have observed the United States Navy's attempts to achieve invisibility through electromagnetic field manipulation during World War II. According to his detailed account, he was serving aboard the merchant vessel SS Andrew Carlssin when he witnessed an experiment conducted on the USS Eldridge at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in 1943. The experiment, Allen testified, had worked far too well. Instead of simply achieving radar invisibility, the entire destroyer had vanished from sight before reappearing in a dramatic flash of light. But the crew, he claimed, had been forever changed by the experience. Some had become partially invisible and couldn't control the effect. Others had developed the ability to walk through solid walls, an ability they couldn't turn off. Most disturbing of all, some crew members had become unstuck in time itself. Allen described meeting sailors from the Eldridge in bars around Philadelphia who would suddenly freeze mid-sentence, becoming invisible and inaudible to everyone around them for minutes at a time. When they returned, they claimed to have been somewhere else entirely, sometimes in the past, sometimes in the future. These sailors spoke of experiencing their entire lives out of sequence, of being unable to control when and where they existed in time. One sailor, Allen claimed, had simply walked through the wall of a bar and was never seen again. Another had gotten stuck halfway through a wall and died horribly when the effect wore off. The most disturbing case involved a sailor who aged 30 years in a matter of minutes during one of these temporal episodes, dying of old age in front of his terrified shipmates. What made Allen's account compelling wasn't just the extraordinary detail, but the scientific accuracy of his descriptions. His understanding of electromagnetic field theory and relativity was decades ahead of publicly available scientific knowledge. He demonstrated knowledge of unified field theory and space-time manipulation that would have been extremely difficult for a merchant marine to acquire in 1943. When researchers attempted to verify Allen's claims, they discovered that official records of the Philadelphia experiment had been classified or destroyed. The USS Eldridge's logs from October 1943 were mysteriously missing. Most crew members had died or disappeared, and those few who could be contacted refused to discuss their experiences aboard the ship. Yet some evidence remained. Philadelphia area newspapers from late 1943 contained brief mentions of strange incidents involving military personnel who had appeared suddenly in bars and restaurants, acting confused and disoriented before vanishing again. Medical records from naval hospitals showed an unusual number of psychological cases involving temporal displacement delusions among destroyer crews from the Philadelphia yard. The consistency of Allen's account, combined with the missing official records and supporting circumstantial evidence, creates a compelling case for the possibility that the United States Navy accidentally achieved time travel during wartime experiments. The human cost, according to Allen's testimony, was catastrophic, with crew members becoming permanently displaced in time and space. Charlie Chaplin's Circus. In 1928, Charlie Chaplin was premiering his film The Circus at Grauman's Chinese Theater. The event was captured on film by studio cameras, creating what should have been a simple record of a Hollywood premiere. For decades, this footage remained buried in archives, seemingly unremarkable. But in 2010, when film researcher George Clark examined the footage frame by frame using modern digital enhancement techniques, he discovered something that defied explanation. Walking through the background of the shot was a woman in dark clothing, holding what appeared to be a small black device pressed against her ear. She was clearly engaged in conversation, speaking into the device and listening, exactly as someone would do with a modern cellular phone. The problem was obvious. This footage was from 1928. The first mobile phone wouldn't be invented for another 4 decades. Clark's digital analysis revealed that the object the woman was holding matched the size, shape, and usage pattern of a modern communication device. She held it at the precise angle someone would use for a phone conversation. Her mouth movements clearly indicated she was speaking. Her walking pattern showed the distracted, purposeful movement of someone engaged in a telephone call. The woman herself appeared unusual in other ways that suggested temporal displacement. While her clothing seemed appropriate for the 1920s at first glance, closer examination revealed subtle differences in cut and fabric that didn't match period fashion exactly. Her hairstyle suggested modern techniques, and her overall appearance had a quality that indicated someone attempting to blend into the past, but not entirely succeeding. What makes this case particularly compelling is the authenticity of the footage itself. This was unedited original film stock from 1928. Multiple film experts, including technicians from Kodak, have verified that there's no tampering or digital manipulation. The woman was actually present at that premiere, using that device. Digital analysis has confirmed that such effects couldn't have been achieved with 1920s technology. Further investigation revealed other anomalies in the crowd that evening. Several individuals in the background were wearing clothing that, while appearing period-appropriate initially, showed subtle signs of modern manufacturing techniques. Their postures and mannerisms suggested people unfamiliar with 1920s social conventions, as if they were visitors from another time attempting to blend in. Most intriguingly, no one in the crowd seems to notice or react to the woman with the communication device. In 1928, such an object would have been absolutely extraordinary and certainly would have drawn attention. The lack of reaction suggests that either everyone present was part of some elaborate deception, or the woman and her device were somehow visible only to the camera. Hollywood historians have been unable to identify the woman despite having detailed records of everyone who was supposed to be at the premiere. She doesn't appear on any guest lists, wasn't part of the studio system, and has never been identified by surviving attendees or their families. She remains a complete mystery, captured on film using technology that wouldn't exist for decades. The Swedish kitchen portal. In August 2006, Håkan Nordqvist was renovating his kitchen when he discovered something impossible behind his wall. What makes Nordqvist's story unique among time travel claims is the physical evidence he brought back. A tattoo showing his name and birth date in a style that didn't exist in 2006, and a photograph that appears to show him with his 81-year-old self. Nordqvist claims he was reaching behind his kitchen sink to repair a water leak when his arm went through what should have been solid wall. Instead of plaster and wood, he felt empty space. When he investigated further, he found himself crawling through a tunnel that seemed to exist outside normal space and time. On the other side, he emerged into what appeared to be his same apartment, but everything was different. The apartment was decorated in a style that seemed futuristic, yet lived in. The technology was recognizable, but more advanced. Screens responded to touch and gesture, furniture adjusted itself automatically, and appliances seemed to anticipate needs. Most shocking of all, sitting in a chair watching what appeared to be three-dimensional television, was an elderly version of himself. The older Håkan, according to Nordqvist, was unsurprised by his younger self's appearance. He explained that this type of temporal contact happened occasionally and was part of the reason he had chosen to live in the same apartment across multiple decades. The future Håkan gave his younger self a tattoo, using some kind of advanced technique that left no scarring or healing time. The tattoo, which Nordqvist still bears today, shows his name and birth date in a font and style that typographers have been unable to identify. The ink appears to have properties that don't match any tattooing materials available in 2006, showing a depth and luminescence that conventional tattoos lack. Most compelling is the photograph. The older Håkan insisted on taking a picture together using what appeared to be an advanced camera that produced a finished photograph instantly. The image shows Nordqvist as he appeared in 2006 standing next to what appears to be himself as an 81-year-old man. Facial recognition software has confirmed that both faces are the same person, aged appropriately, but the aging progression shows details and characteristics that computer aging couldn't have produced in 2006. When investigators examined Nordqvist's apartment, they found no tunnel and no way he could have accessed another space behind his kitchen wall. The building's architectural plans showed solid concrete in the area where he claims to have found the passage. Yet the tattoo remains, and the photograph continues to baffle experts. Medical examination of the tattoo has revealed ink particles that don't match any known tattooing materials. The composition includes elements that are extremely rare and expensive, arranged in a molecular structure that suggests manufacturing techniques beyond current capabilities. The photograph similarly appears to be produced using processes that are more advanced than anything available in 2006. The Antikythera mechanism. In 1901, sponge divers working off the Greek island of Antikythera discovered what appeared to be the remains of an ancient Roman shipwreck. Among the artifacts they recovered was a corroded bronze mechanism that would challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. The Antikythera mechanism, as it came to be known, is an analog computer of staggering complexity. Built around 100 BCE, it uses a sophisticated system of bronze gears to track the movements of celestial bodies with mathematical precision. It can predict eclipses decades in advance, track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and follow complex astronomical cycles used in ancient Greek calendars. What makes the mechanism extraordinary isn't just its complexity, but the advanced mathematical and mechanical knowledge required to build it. The device incorporates differential gearing, a technology that historians believed wasn't developed until the 16th century. Its eclipse prediction system uses calculations that require knowledge of lunar orbital variations that weren't officially discovered until the work of Johannes Kepler in the 17th century. Recent research has revealed even more impossible aspects of the device. Advanced imaging has shown that the mechanism originally contained far more functions than previously thought, including the ability to track the movements of all known planets and predict their positions decades in advance. This requires knowledge of planetary orbital mechanics that wasn't discovered until the work of Copernicus, Kepler, and Newton. The mathematical principles embedded in the device include concepts that wouldn't be formally developed until the Renaissance. The gear ratios use approximations of irrational numbers that demonstrate an understanding of advanced number theory. The mechanical solutions to complex astronomical calculations show engineering principles that seem to anticipate developments in clockwork that were centuries away. Perhaps most disturbing is what happened to this knowledge. The Antikythera mechanism represents a level of technological sophistication that vanished completely from the historical record. No other ancient Greek device shows similar complexity, and the mathematical and engineering knowledge required to build it seems to have disappeared without a trace. Analysis of the construction techniques reveals that the mechanism wasn't built by multiple craftsmen over time, but was designed by a single brilliant engineer who possessed knowledge that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. The precision of the gear ratios, the sophistication of the astronomical calculations, and the elegance of the mechanical solutions all point to a mind that understood both advanced mathematics and precision engineering at a level not seen again for over 1,000 years. Who was the anonymous genius who created the Antikythera mechanism? How did they possess knowledge of planetary mechanics, differential gearing, and precision engineering that wouldn't be rediscovered for more than a millennium? The device sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, a bronze testament to the possibility that someone with knowledge from the future once walked among the ancient Greeks. The Da Vinci Code. Leonardo da Vinci died in 1519, but his private notebooks contain designs and concepts that wouldn't become reality for centuries. While history remembers him as a Renaissance genius ahead of his time, a closer examination reveals knowledge so advanced and precise that it raises troubling questions about where his ideas truly originated. In his Codex Atlanticus, Leonardo sketched detailed designs for helicopters, submarines, tanks, parachutes, and flying machines with internal combustion engines. These weren't vague conceptual drawings, but detailed engineering blueprints with precise specifications that demonstrate deep understanding of aerodynamics, hydraulics, and mechanical engineering principles that wouldn't be formally understood for centuries. His anatomical studies show impossible accuracy for someone working without modern medical knowledge. Leonardo's drawings of the human heart include details of valve function and blood flow that wouldn't be discovered until William Harvey's work in the 17th century. His brain dissections show understanding of neurological structures and functions that wouldn't be identified until the advent of modern neuroscience. Most puzzling are his designs for machines that incorporate technologies that didn't exist in the Renaissance. His sketches include ball bearings, internal combustion engines, and what appears to be steam turbines. His flying machine designs demonstrate knowledge of wing loading, center of gravity, and control surfaces that show sophisticated understanding of flight dynamics that took humanity centuries to develop. Recent analysis of Leonardo's notebooks has revealed an even more disturbing pattern. Many of his most advanced concepts appear suddenly in his work with no developmental sketches or experimental phases. It's as if he already possessed complete knowledge of how these technologies worked and was simply documenting them. Handwriting analysis of these advanced sections shows subtle differences from Leonardo's normal script, as if they were copied from another source rather than original thoughts. The mathematical calculations that accompany his designs use techniques and formulas that wouldn't be developed until the work of Newton and Leibniz. His astronomical observations contain references to phenomena that weren't discovered until telescopic observations nearly a century later. His sketches show accurate depictions of lunar craters and what appeared to be observations of planetary features that were beyond the capability of Renaissance optics. Was Leonardo da Vinci simply a genius, centuries ahead of his time? Or did he have access to knowledge from the future? His notebooks read less like the experimental work of an inventor and more like technical documentation of someone recording technologies they had already seen in operation. The Bold Street time slip. Since the 1960s, hundreds of people have reported stepping out of the present day and finding themselves in Liverpool's past, sometimes for mere seconds, sometimes for several minutes. What makes these reports particularly compelling is their consistency and the number of independent witnesses who describe identical experiences. The most thoroughly documented case occurred in July 1996 when Frank and Carol Sager were shopping on Bold Street. Frank had entered a bookshop while Carol waited outside. When he emerged minutes later, Bold Street had transformed completely. The modern shops had vanished, replaced by businesses from the 1960s. People were dressed in period clothing, cars were vintage models, and even the street signs displayed different names. Frank wasn't experiencing this alone. Several other shoppers were wandering around looking confused and disoriented, clearly experiencing the same phenomenon. They exchanged glances of mutual bewilderment before the street suddenly snapped back to the present day, leaving them shaken but back in familiar surroundings. Investigation revealed that Frank's description of 1960s Bold Street was historically accurate down to the smallest detail. The shop names he mentioned, their exact locations, and even the street layout matched historical records and photographs from that era. He described businesses and architectural details that had been demolished and forgotten decades before, information he couldn't have accessed through conventional means. The pattern continues with remarkable consistency. In 2008, Sarah Martinez entered what she thought was a trendy boutique on Bold Street, only to find herself in a 1970s department store, complete with period furnishing, staff in vintage uniforms, and merchandise from decades past. She attempted to purchase a dress but was told her modern currency wasn't acceptable. When she stepped back onto the street, she was back in 2008, and the shop she had entered no longer existed. Security cameras have occasionally captured these incidents. Footage from 2006 shows pedestrians suddenly changing direction mid-stride, as if avoiding obstacles that aren't visible on camera. Their behavior suggests they're seeing a different environment than what the cameras record. Most striking are shots of people who appear to be interacting with individuals who don't show up on the footage. Local historians have discovered that Bold Street sits on a site with unusual geographical properties. The street was built over ancient tunnels and underground chambers that may create electromagnetic anomalies. Geological surveys have found unusual mineral deposits in the bedrock that some theorists believe could affect the local space-time continuum. The time slips aren't random. They tend to occur during specific weather conditions, usually on overcast days with high humidity and electromagnetic activity. The experiences follow consistent patterns. People step out of one time period into Liverpool's past, usually the 1960s or 1970s, experience the past as completely real and solid, then return to the present without warning. Most compelling is the fact that people experiencing time slips on Bold Street often encounter the same past events and locations. Multiple witnesses have described identical shops, the same street musicians, and even the same conversations overheard in the past. It's as if they're all accessing the same temporal snapshot of Liverpool's history. Edgar Cayce. Between 1901 and 1944, Edgar Cayce made over 14,000 recorded predictions while in trance states. Many of these dealt with future technological developments, geopolitical changes, and natural disasters that wouldn't occur until decades after his death in 1945. What makes his predictions remarkable isn't just their accuracy, but the specific technical details he provided about technologies that didn't exist in his lifetime. In 1935, Cayce predicted that people would someday communicate instantly with anyone in the world using small devices they carried in their pockets. He described a global network of information that people would access for education, entertainment, and commerce, essentially describing the internet and smartphones with startling accuracy. His medical predictions were equally precise. In 1928, he predicted that scientists would discover that DNA carried hereditary information and could be manipulated to treat disease. He described what we now know as genetic therapy, stem cell research, and gene editing, using terminology that wouldn't be developed until decades later. His understanding of cellular biology and genetics was so advanced that modern researchers still study his medical readings for insights. Cayce's geological predictions have proven unnervingly accurate. He predicted the discovery of oil fields in specific locations years before they were found. He described changes in weather patterns and natural disasters with precise timing and locations. His predictions about space exploration were remarkably detailed for someone working decades before the space age. What made Cayce unique wasn't just his predictions, but his apparent ability to access information from multiple time periods. In trance, he would describe ancient civilizations with archaeological accuracy and future technologies with engineering precision, as if he was personally observing these different eras. His descriptions of future events included sensory details that suggested direct experience rather than psychic impression. Medical examination of Cayce during his trance states revealed brain activity patterns that didn't match any known psychological condition. His brain showed unusual activity in regions associated with temporal processing, as if he was literally accessing different time periods rather than simply predicting the future based on current trends. These 10 cases represent some of the most compelling evidence that time travel might not be confined to science fiction. From internet prophets and anachronistic artifacts to photographic evidence and documented time slips, the pattern is clear. Whether these individuals were genuine time travelers or something even stranger, they've left behind physical evidence that continues to baffle the world's leading experts decades later. The next time someone tells you that time travel is just science fiction, remember these cases. Remember the photographs, the artifacts, the predictions that came true, because the truth is far more extraordinary than we ever dared imagine. If you've learned something from this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Don't keep these instances as a secret for yourself. Until next, when we find out how.